And we get to the last panel from this track. So I want to invite Tyler and all the panelists on stage so we can, and it's a really good way to close the track is to discuss where are we going? How is it going to influence the future of game development? It's a good point to end the track today. So give a warm welcome to our panelists, please.
We'll start off with quick intros. I think we're going to make an expedient amount of time for this one. So I'm Tyler, indie dev, do some other stuff. I teach as well. I've taught some classes on AI. I'm showing the AI photo booth out there after this, if you want to check it out as well. Rahul, you want to start us off?
Sure. I'm Rahul Sood, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Irreverent Labs. We're a Seattle-based AI entertainment company.
Hi, my name is Renee Gittins. I'm the CEO and creative director of Stumbling Cat, an indie studio based in the area. I've previously been the general manager of Phoenix Labs Vancouver, the head of the IGDA, and I worked for a while with Spirit AI, which did moderation-based AI tools as well as AI-based text input for dialogue creation.
Hi everyone, I'm John Ozimek. I'm the co-founder of a UK agency called Big Games Machine. We help companies with PR and marketing for game tech and also indie games. I've been doing it for 24 years and we've been working with AI companies in this space for the last 2.
Howdy, I'm Zak Whaley. I'm the Director of Engineering at PlayEveryWare, a co-development studio based in Georgetown in Seattle here. Previously, I've worked at Microsoft on a game called Project Spark, working on the content pipeline and animation engine there, and also at Magic Leap, working on XR platform middleware for computer vision engineers, making APIs for end-user developers for perception and awareness in space. I am also on as the treasurer, which was recently appointed, of the IGDA Board of Directors, and also help run the IGDA engineering SIG.
Fascinating. All right, we're going to start off with a nice softball here. I want to hear from each of you what you're most excited for in the future of AI ML. And it should also be known, I'm going to try to say AI ML as much as possible, because that's really what we're talking about. So who wants to start us off with what is the next thing you're most excited for?
I think that probably the kind of just general empowerment of a lot of people to be able to create a lot of the different types of content for ideation. I think it's the most immediate thing that's available. I think that being able to query and generate numerous ideas to like really guide AI to be able to like develop things. It's something that is being used right now and can continue to be used going forward.
I think that we are going to see some gameplay that we've never seen before. I think that's the most interesting thing. That's my main optimistic point, and then I'll probably be English and cynical for the rest of this panel. But I'm the least qualified member of this panel to say how that might work. But I definitely think that we're going to have some amazing tools in the hands of very creative people.
So I have 2 things that I'm excited about. First of all, my company was building a game where it's a fighting game where every character in the game is an artificially intelligent NPC. And so the player input is really more about learning about your character as sort of like a pet. You get emotionally connected to those characters and you own those characters. I was excited about that, but also super excited about we recently had a breakthrough on the creation of this game using machine learning, building our own foundation model where we can create sort of short films using images. And I guess where I'm going with this is the idea of having characters that are artificially intelligent and ownership requires some sort of ownership token. And unfortunately in the US, it's very difficult to sort of navigate that space right now with the crypto industry the way it is and the SEC and that sort of thing. So we're kind of putting that on pause and we're really focusing on this foundation model that we're building. It'll be available in about 3 months. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Zach. I'm really excited about ideation, the ability to quickly prototype and draft through things. I've used AI because I'm bad at writing good poems. So I've written like a poem draft and thrown it through ChatGPT and gotten something that sounds far better than I have the writing skill to do. I also think what's really interesting about AI is its empowering ability to take away work that is not always fun to do. Like, I don't want to figure out all of my marketing materials for an indie game by myself, so I can ask ChatGPT or another tool to be like, okay, write me a bunch of paragraphs about why parents should encourage their children to play a game that's going to teach them about all of these things, and it'll send me nice marketing copy that I could then use for something else. It's also really good for helping with education. As you're learning new things, instead of trying to go through a bunch of documentation and posts on different forums, you can just ask it questions, and then you can teach yourself. It's actually really, really helpful, not only for people who are breaking into the industry, but even who are veterans within the industry and trying to learn new things like how to write Unity shaders.
Fascinating. All right, so it's not all sunshine and rainbows here. The obvious next question, what are you most concerned or anxious about in this kind of future of AI ML?
I'm really concerned about regulators getting in the space and not knowing how to regulate it. Today I was watching, OpenAI talk with regulators about regulation, and the fact is we really are dealing with an old school generation of people that don't quite understand technology and really try to dumb it down to the bare minimum and then try and build regulation around that. The problem is, these decisions have huge global effects. I'm concerned about that. I'm also concerned about the use of open source with AI foundation models. I think it's insane to have any sort of open source out there. It's being used by other countries now, and with the US wanting to go in and regulate, other countries are just going to go and build whatever the hell they want. So we should all be very concerned about that.
Yeah, I'll echo some of that. I think I've got two big concerns, really. One is, to the regulation point, it's a Wild West right now. It's first mover advantage. Everyone's rushing around. It needs regulation, but the question is, how is that regulation done? There's absolutely no idea how you're going to copyright an asset you create using an AI at the moment. How are we going to publish games if we don't own the assets that we're trying to monetize, right? So there's a whole world to be worked out here. The second thing is we are in a tech environment where disruption is generally seen as good, okay? No, it's not. I respectfully disagree with quite a few of the thoughts of the previous speaker at Rise Angle, right? Because you can't just assume that an entire ecosystem is going to get disrupted and work itself out and it'll all be fine because we're all going to become creators. It doesn't work like that. Markets don't work like that. So I think at the moment it's really exciting. Good will come from it. But my worry is that we're going to overcorrect. We're going to do something, it's going to go very badly, and then we're going to have to sort ourselves out.
Yeah, I definitely concur with that. I certainly think that we've all seen and participated in a lot of the conversations about the complexity of everything involved, and obviously with the no AI art movement and whatnot, people critiquing a lot of the data models and whatnot. I think one of the challenges, and I don't have an answer for this, but this is what's kind of troubling for me, is like how we might come to a conclusion on this, is that advocating for opt-in versus opt-out entries in the data model, like one of the value adds that these data models be able to provide is massive amounts of data sets. And so if we kind of go the exclusively opt-in method, or don't come with a nuanced and reasonable answer, it's just kind of neutering the ability of the models to be extremely effective. So we need to figure out how to navigate that. I mean, socially, we've also, like, over time, kind of navigated a large number of other large-scale copyright infringement uses, such as the memes and Let's Plays and whatnot. Those are not answered either. So it's like, it's just a very complicated and involved topic for sure. And so different, answers in the court could resolve different ways, and they have large-scale effects for sure.
I wouldn't say this is my largest concern. I think everyone else on this panel has hit on a lot of points. I think that AI is very useful for content generation, but I think that it still requires a critical eye. It requires creativity to be input. And unfortunately, a lot of times when people get excited about a new tool, it gets like a hammer and then they see everything as a nail. Not everything's a nail. You can't solve everything with AI. And if it is poorly applied, I think it's going to get a lot more criticism because it's going to not have the interesting new creativity in it that helps it advance someone's creativity on their own. So I think that perhaps poor implementations of AI and content generation through AI models is actually going to receive a lot of criticism and perhaps hurt the advancement.
Great answers all around. So I'm going to follow up with a question that Renee provided us. So our current industry perception of AI is a little bit all over the place. Seems like a lot of companies are deciding on the fly how they're going to handle it. So I'd love to hear from each of you where you see that being in a year or two. Kind of projecting forward, again, AI advances. In 2025, what is going to be, are we going to have a governing faction? Are we going to have a sort of ESRB rating of AI use? Where do you imagine the future of specifically the game industry being?
So I think what we're going to see is initially, of course, exploration of these more generalized AI tools. But in the short term, I think we're going to see the most amount of use and iteration and success is going to be on focused tools. So we've already seen a lot of these tools implemented, such as AI moderation or machine learning and AI-based vocal generation and other really focused and nuanced use of AI. Because I feel like that is a lot easier to control the inputs and the outputs to get something desirable. I think there's going to be a lot of people looking at larger solutions, but when it comes to something that's going to happen in the next few years, I think it's actually these specialized tools that are really going to take off and really have already been a part of game development for the last almost decade already.
Yeah, I think that what we're going to see is at the moment, we're watching a fight between Microsoft, OpenAI, which and Meta, really, and there'll probably be some other players that come along, and that's a headline-dominating thing. I think what we'll see is a lot of failure. From speaking to VCs, a lot of people after FTX collapsed moved out of crypto incredibly quickly and put their money into AI startups. That cycle has only just started. That's got to go round. You're going to have a lot of M&A, a lot of failure as people do the initial land grab and the first mover advantage. I think where we'll be next year is we'll have some examples of AI working really, really well, and we'll start getting a sense of what it can do and what it can't do. The stuff that I'm most involved with at the moment is in-world AI, so that's generative chat and speech within games. So that's going to be a storytelling tool, but it's very, very much just a tool, and a lot of the work that's going on there is to look at how it can fit into existing processes, existing pipelines. So it's not disruptive, it's an additive technology. And I think they're the things that will get adopted more quickly. I absolutely agree. I think we can save lots of time and effort. I think AI will take away the grunt work, but we must be careful that we still enable the creativity, which is the human aspect of everything we do.
Yeah, I think that a large way that it'll certainly help, the people who are best primed to take advantage of the tools are people who are already experts. I think that, people, someone creating, I've seen a lot of instances of people creating art and professional artists coming in like, oh, this is compositionally wrong, and this doesn't make sense, and historically inaccurate, and whatnot. Well, you have that expertise. You can see that. It's a faster ideation tool. It's like photo bashing when it first came on the scene, which is a concept artist ideation tool of leveraging a bunch of existing images and warping them together and kind of making an image to kind of ideate and throw things down on the page. Like, critiqued a lot at first, but it sped up a lot of being able to do a lot of biz dev and whatnot. I see this as another tool in that way from a visual standpoint, and similarly from being able to help shape learning. Like, I've used it in mentorship situations to kind of help come up with, here's a bunch of resources. Like, I was able to know that a bunch of them were accurate, and then learned about a few others in that process. And being able to, like, yes, facts are a hard thing that you should always question. And as an expert, you can actually question those things and be able to, like, help broaden your own ability. Like, effort is a gas that will fill the vacuum of the time, right? Like, render farms, a frame of a render is always going to take 45 minutes. Computers get faster, throw more things in the scene. So.
I'll just quickly say that, I see this changing game development forever. Not in 5 years, but like this year, you're going to start to see some super interesting tools come out where you can, take a 2D image and create a full 3D environment with object recognition, being able to move items around, like full 3D meshes that you can dump into Blender and manipulate. You'll be able to take characters and put them into a world where you can do animation prediction and visualize what your game might look like. Basically, hallucinate what a game might look like and go create it. So developers should be really excited about this and embrace it, use the tools, use it as a way to enhance your workflow and not worry about it replacing your job. That's not what it's intended to do. I mean, at the end of the day, if you can use it to sort of like create world build and stuff like that and do most of the grunt work and ideate and that sort of thing, it's fantastic.
Awesome. This is a great lead into a question that John gave us. Where is AI going to make the biggest impact first? Kind of where do you expect the first major impact of these AI tools next year? It's now commonplace. What area do you most see that coming?
I think sort of Zach referred to this earlier, but I think it is in assisting with the creation of more content for games. Because we can ideate faster, because we can get assistance with editing, because we can get assistance with texture creation, etc. I think that is going to empower smaller teams and even larger teams to just create more content, ideate on that content quicker. And so we will either see games which have more content to play through, or games which have a higher detail and quality of that content. They'll be richer and have more things, because if you give a game developer $10 million, they will use every penny of that. If you give them
they'll use 15 million. Actually,
right.
Yeah.
They're never going to ask for less money. So it's just going to fill up more buckets with that $10 million, because they're able to create more and express more of what they would like to have the player experience.
I think I just want to quickly remind everyone that AI is not new, right? There's quite a lot of AI tools out there. I think what's happened is 2 years ago, if I said to a journalist, oh, we're working with an AI company, they grumpily go back and they go, we hate the word AI, we're not writing about that, it's machine learning. But now we're okay calling it AI. It's good. I think that the immediate thing will be what plugs in fastest to people's existing workflows, right? So, I mean, you guys know far better than me, but how's Unity going to be approaching this stuff? Level generation, testing, these tools are already there. They're already got big data sets. They already do some really, really great work. So what I see through the companies we work with, it's going to be that kind of immediacy. I think there's an interesting crossover as well with entertainment and movies. Previs stuff, animated previs is much, much easier to do. There's lots of really interesting stuff going on that's come out of the visual effects world that I think we'll see more commonality between game development and other forms of entertainment, because the tools are going to be looking at the same quality and the same outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, again, even just bootstrapping your own ability in development, like I've used it to help me refine and develop a script in a language that I'm not super familiar with, and was able to then learn about things that were what's wrong with it, and iterate on it, and kind of do some things, and you're like, okay, yeah, no, I can help shape that. And I think that from both the language model itself is informed on all of the docs, of all the doxygens, of all the man pages, of everything around. So it also has, VM ability from anything from code bases to all the way to understanding about story and narrative of a lot of different cultures around the world. So being able to inform yourself and edit and whatnot. I think from a text-based basis, writing is kind of the foundation of an excessive amount of creative processes, and it just has such a broad effect. Many content creators are constantly talking to Paul Jarvis, can't remember his name from Better Ideas, and Avi Abdal. The most important thing that they talk about is their writing, because that informs all of their content creation, video editing, podcast, everything. It all stems from writing. So.
Well, okay. So I think what we're seeing just broadly, we're seeing companies like NVIDIA becoming very powerful. GPU computing is here to stay, and people often complain about Bitcoin mining being bad for the environment. Wait until you see AI. And so that's sort of one area that it's going to affect. Broadly speaking, how we think about using green energy in these data centers and that sort of thing. We're also going to see more creativity with just consumers. So, being able, I think the biggest area that's going to get disrupted is short films, being able to create short films using, pictures and small amounts of video. And then what that means for rights holders. If you look at what's happening with Universal and other sort of music companies and, Disney, that sort of thing, rights holders for movies, they're starting to freak out. They're freaking out because AI Drake actually sounds better than the real Drakes in some cases, and they want to shut it down. It's actually a really bad approach. It's sort of like the old Napster days where they just, if they're afraid of something, they want to go and use their lawyers to shut it down. They're not going to be able to because it's all open source. So what do? And I think the industry needs to come around and find ways to partner with companies that are in the space and work with them, because this is the future. And quite honestly, they're not going to be able to compete with Google, Meta, Microsoft on building foundation models. They need to find companies that are in the weeds working on this stuff and partner with them now.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to end with one last question for you all, and then I'm going to open it to the audience. So we're going to give our audience some homework. As an academic, this is part of my job. If you have one, AI tool, one article, one thing that you would say, go watch this, go read this, what would you recommend? What is the thing that you would send people to check out after?
I happened to come across this recently. I believe it's an article from a leaked memo from Google called "We Have No Moat." And it basically is discussing about how all the AI researchers in Google are doing all this work to develop all these models and deal with the data sets. And Google has had a massive moat in almost all of their other resources, from their momentum and just everything that's available. And basically the researcher is talking about how if they aren't trying to engage with the public, Google has no moat in this space because of things like Meta's leaked model and other kinds of data sets. Their open source is able to pursue this kind of just freely. There is nothing that is a barrier, besides massive amounts of tensor processing and whatnot for certain models, obviously. But as far as continuing to develop these things, they can be done on a broad and minor scale. So I really like that resource.
I'm not remotely academic, so I can't come up with anything as clever as that. I would say to people to go and check out some of the presentations that were at GDC recently. There were some really, really good ones on AI. There was a really interesting one about just pointing out the inherent bias in the data models. There was a great example where they put some prompts in to come up with characters, and the characters were all sort of generic white, Western character models, despite the prompts having no indication of that. And it was just a great, very blunt illustration that we're dealing with a large data model that's not particularly well understood yet, and the outcomes from that need to be worked through. So I'd just go and look at what people in the industry are talking about. GDC is a great resource for that. There's a really good roundup of that stuff in Forbes, I think, recently.
I think sort of another aspect that you can do, and I recommend investigating. So the game I'm working on right now is based on fairy tales and folklore from around the world. It's really actually very hard to research fairy tales and folklore from around the world. So I would recommend just like using ChatGPT or whatever your favorite generic language interaction AI is, and ask it about a culture or area that you're not even very familiar with, and about like lore or history or something else there, and use that as a seed to then take into your own exploration of materials, because that's something I've found really, really enlightening. It's enabled me to do research that I've never been able to do effectively before, because it gives me lots of great ideas for these amazing folklore and fairy tale stories that I would spend days at a library to even like try to find a sentence about.
So I guess I don't like to come up and sort of promote what I'm doing, but in this case I think it's kind of important. I think in a few months you're going to see if you haven't heard of Irreverent Labs today, you will, probably like July, August timeframe. We're releasing a new foundation model that lets you create short films using pictures, and it's a beautiful interface, and we're also going to create an API to let any developer develop on it. And I think what we're building is going to change game development for forever. So, yeah.
I'll finish this off on this one. I have a million, and I can throw at you. The short story Mana is amazing, but what I would actually recommend, I think if you just Google Donkey Space, Frank Lance recently started a blog, and he's done a lot of great GDC talks and stuff in the past, and he's dealing with specifically the issue of AI. And then there's also another one, Robin Sloan, Writing on a Genre, which is a great one because Robin started working with GPT back in the 2 era and was really much promoting the idea that the weird, the kind of bad stuff, is the good stuff. Like, that's what we want. Like, to Renee's example, the times that it probably goes off script in the folklore can be the most interesting places to explore. So we solve the problems and get it perfectly accurate, and then it's not as fun for us as game devs. So. All right, so we're going to open it up to questions.
We can have one,
Okay.
because otherwise we're not going to have time for lunch. Sorry. Yeah.
I guess I better make it good. I come from a theater and film background, and one of the things I've noticed is the more formulaic and committee-written something gets, the more generic and unexciting the show or movie gets. With what you meant with the learning models, with AI and everything, are you concerned about the quality of the content that will come out of it? Because, I mean, to speak to, you mentioned you tried to write a poem and then gave it to ChatGPT to improve upon, but my opinion as a creator would be like, your poem was going to be better than ChatGPT ever could have been. So I guess, are you seeing the quality curve going to start to flatten, maybe go down a little bit without the risks? Or do you think the learning is, like, how do you see that happening?
Rahul, you mind if I open for this one? I just have another read suggestion on that.
Yes, please.
Someone did a great article on Star Trek food synthesizers and why everybody complained about them, because they're essentially MREs, right? They're the average synthesized version of any recipe, so. Sorry.
I just want to say that foundation models are only getting smarter. So, like, they're not going to get dumber. They're only sort of improving. Like, for us, it takes 29 days to do one round of training. Every 29 days, this thing gets smarter and better. And there's no cap to it. So I think over time, it's just going to be insanely good.
I think that if you said, hey, ChatGPT, write me a poem, you get something generic. If you say, hey, I need an improvement of this poem with these interesting qualities based on these characters, some from folklore, some that I'm going to provide you a background on. It does a really good job of taking that interesting seed and working with that without making it generic. Like the more generic your prompt is, the more generic the information you have is. And as noted, this is why you need to have like experts interacting with it, because we know like what a good art piece looks like, or we know what a good story and interesting characters are. And then it is a tool that helps enhance and improve iteration versus being the thing that's being creative. Like, yes, AI right now is not particularly good at being creative, but if you give it creative seeds, then it can help you grow and improve those quickly.
I agree with you, because this is what I most struggle with personally. I mean, I'm in a profession which is 99% writing and communication, and everyone's telling me that AI is going to sort of fundamentally change the way I work. And every time I see a piece of ChatGPT writing, I think it's terrible. So I have an arts background myself. For me, art is the moment of creation of something original. It's not iteration. And I think at the moment we're obsessed with iteration. So I personally, and I could be completely wrong, okay, but I see this stuff bedding down into becoming usable and useful and have utility. And that is not the essence of creation, right? Because if we were thinking about AI in that sense, you could go to any art gallery and most of that stuff would never happen, because lots of it is brilliant in the thought process and terrible in the application. There's a difference between creatively inspiring and technically brilliant. So, I don't see it changing now. I think the human context will always be key. My job is really easy to do if you know how to do it. But you can either do it or you can't. You either get context and communication and everything that goes with it, or you don't. So I think that the two things will remain separate, but it will become an integral tool to be able to use it well.
Briefly, I would maybe push back a little bit myself that iteration isn't a part of creativity. Leonard Cohen worked on Hallelujah for decades and couldn't get it right until someone covered it and became the Hallelujah. So I think it's an integral part myself, but I can understand. To more directly talk about like what impacting the creative process. A few months ago, people would have thought like using AI for text generation was like a little laughable. Like there were some certainly like good promising results, but not, as soon as like 1 week after that open usage for ChatGPT popped out, Hank Green from the Vlog Brothers released a video where it's just immediately everyone's mind was blown, and this is wow, like they're just really like this is nuts. And then immediately it was like, oh well, it's not that good, and but it's leaps and bounds from everything that had been even prior to that point, and suddenly it's just now in the zeitgeist. And the kinds of rapid iterations and improvements that we're seeing, it's like, well, but it's just kind of a boring story, whereas before it's like the Eliza chatbot, where it's just like this thing doesn't understand anything. And so what is going to be the next rapid advancement?
Cool. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks our panelists for hanging out with us, and hope to see you all around.
Thank you very much.